You ever wonder what the hidden rules are that kind of shape our whole world? I'm not talking about laws and books, but that unwritten code that makes a joke land, or a certain style suddenly cool, or an idea just take off. Well, today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating puzzle from the mind of Umberto Eco, and it gets right to the heart of how culture really works.
Okay, so here it is. This is our central mystery for today. Now, at first glance, I know it's dense, it looks super academic, but I promise you, buried inside these words is this just profound insight into the creative, sometimes chaotic, and, beautiful engine of human society. And we're gonna solve it together.
I know, right? It feels like a riddle. But don't worry, we're not going to just leave it there. We're going to break this thing down piece by piece until it's crystal clear. So let's dive in. Okay, so our first step, the first piece of the puzzle, is to figure out what Eco is even talking about when he uses the word code. It's kind of the key that unlocks this whole idea. Think of it like this. You know how a language has grammar and vocabulary? Well, that's the code that lets us all communicate. Eco's point is that a culture has a similar underlying system. There are these unwritten grammars for stuff like honor, fashion, humor, even family. It's like the invisible software that our entire society runs on. So now we get to the real tension in that first half of the quote. Because there's this huge difference between the nice, neat theory of a cultural code and how we actually live our lives, day in and day out. And you can see that contrast right here. On the one side, you've got the semiotic model. That's the clean, abstract map that academics create to try and understand the cultural code. But on the other side, you've got reality, the messy, creative, totally unpredictable way we actually use that code. It's the map versus the real, sprawling, living territory. And we are always messing up that clean model, all of us. We invent slang, we create memes, we use irony, we twist the meanings of words, we break fashion rules. Human creativity just constantly overflows the neat little boxes of any theory. Culture is alive, and it just refuses to be perfectly predictable. So you might be thinking, okay, if the model can't predict what we'll do, what good is it? And that brings us to the second, and you could argue most important, part of Eco's quote, understanding what the true power of this code actually is. See, the model isn't there to predict specific events. Instead, it reveals what Eco calls the generative principles. This is the underlying logic that makes certain things possible or even thinkable inside a culture to begin with. It's not a crystal ball. It's more like an X-ray, showing us the foundational structure that allows for everything else. So here's the crucial point. The model's power isn't in predicting the what, it's in explaining the why. It can't tell you what meme is going to go viral next week, but it can help explain why a culture finds certain kinds of humor or imagery meaningful in the first place. It reveals the logic of the game, not the outcome of every single play. Okay, if any of that still feels a little abstract, this is the moment. This is where it's all going to click together. Because Eco gives us this perfect analogy that just makes this whole complex idea instantly understandable. The key to this whole thing is a super simple but incredibly powerful way of looking at it. Culture is like a language. Let's break down exactly what that means. So here's how it plays out. Just think about it for a second. Knowing the rules of English grammar doesn't mean you can predict the next great novel or every tweet someone's going to post, right? Of course not. But it does explain how it's even possible to write a novel or create new slang or tell a joke in English. Grammar provides the structure that makes all that creativity possible. And a culture's code, it does the exact same thing, just on a massive scale. So let's bring it all home. Eco isn't saying structure is everything, and he's not saying creativity is everything. He's saying the real magic, the life of culture, happens right where those two things meet. There's a line that just captures this perfectly. It reminds us that no matter how well we try to map out the rules, the living, breathing practice of being human is always going to be richer and more surprising than the map itself. And that leads us to the big takeaway. Culture isn't just a rigid set of rules we all have to follow. And it's not pure chaos either. It's this constant, dynamic dance between the two. It's a shared system that we are all constantly testing, bending, breaking, and reinventing together, every single day. And so I'll just leave you with this final thought. From the slang you use, to the clothes you wear, to how you act online, what are the unwritten cultural rules you're a part of? And maybe more importantly, how are you changing them